Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Brian Town, the visionary CEO of Michigan Creative and a dynamic fractional CMO. With a knack for uncovering innovative solutions, Brian helps businesses thrive through expert video production, web design, and marketing strategies. As a creative business coach, he's dedicated to guiding entrepreneurs towards success. Brian's philosophy is simple yet powerful. Every problem has a creative solution. Brian has a wealth of experience and creativity on how to drive business growth and transform challenges into opportunities. So I've asked him to join us here today to share his story and help us all do better creative problem solving. So Brian, thanks so much for joining us. How you doing?
Good. It's always awkward, right? It's when we reads the bio and you're sitting there while someone's saying all these nice things about you. What I want to do with that is I want to get it recorded and read it and then play it really loud when my fourth grade daughter comes home.
You just pay, what are they, I forget what they're like, a squire just to stand in the living room and like scroll.
And now, yeah,
And now
yeah,
introducing Brian Town. Like just
that's
have
right. I get a football announcer up next, the best dad in the world.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks
Thanks
for
for that, though, Daryl. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, good. It's good to have you here. Now, how did you even get into this? Before we talk about what you're doing now, is this a family tradition? Did you pick up the torch that your mom and dad carried before you, and you're just carrying on the family tradition, or what?
No, I like telling the story. It's your classic story of we all remember a teacher that made a difference in our lives, and that was Mrs. Eichel. That was Mrs. Eichel for me. And back in circa 1990 in Jackson, Michigan at Northwest High School, we recorded a lot of videos. Like when there was a class project, we would record videos instead of having to do like a poster or whatever. And this was pre everything. We were shooting on VHS tape. And so we made these videos and they were stupid and whatever. We would reenact different historical things. And I got to really find there's a couple funny ones, but we were one of the only ones that would do it. And I don't know why. I think one of my buddies had a camera or whatever. And Mrs. Eichholz, what are you thinking about doing in college? And I'm like, I have no idea. And she's like, you got to think about TV or media or something in that creative. You're super creative. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And so that's what I did. And everything from there, I went to college for telecommunications and film, graduated in film studies, ended up teaching film and video production at a high school for a long time, but always in that creative mind. That was always something I like to write. I love to film, love to read. And that really started everything. And then from there, after my teaching career, decided one day, like a dummy, I think, to quit a regular paying job and start a company. And so back in 2011, started Michigan Creative, and here we are.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. 2011, you're just getting out of the newbie phase.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
10 years, we started to figure out what are we doing again? What's the
I don't know, man. Most days, yes, you're right. Some days I'm like, I don't have no idea what I'm doing.
one foot in front of the other? Yeah,
That's
can you
right.
speak to that a little bit? What was the transition like? Did you, when you left the stable job to enter business, did you already know? Did you have an idea of what you were getting into? Did you have a
Yeah.
plan? Did you have a year of cash in the bank? Did you already have working marketing and sales systems in place?
No, to everything. What I did have was a very supportive spouse who's still a PA, and she was working in the ER. And so she's the one that kind of said, yeah, man, go for it. We can do it for a bit. If it doesn't work, you can always go back. You've got a master's degree, give it a shot. And that was the main catalyst with her approval. You always want to make sure that you run it by your spouse to see if it's crazy or not. And she would support me no matter what. I had no idea. All I knew was TV production and teaching. That's really all I knew. And I felt that we didn't have much equipment. I had a computer and a camera at the time, and I got a space in an incubator space and came up with the name Michigan Creative and decided that we were going to be not just video, we were going to be a marketing firm too, and figure out how to build websites and figure out how to do marketing, and grew from there. And I didn't really know anything about business, never had run a business. I did know I could lead a team, I could lead a group of students to do great things. And we did that. We won national awards. Public speaking wasn't a problem. If you can speak in front of a bunch of high school yahoos, you can get up in front of an audience, right? And at that point, I didn't really know. And I remember that first couple of months going, man, I don't know. Like, I just assume, like we all do, that it's just going to start working and everything's just going to start coming.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, it's not really working. I called my sister. She's 16 years older than me, super smart, much older too. So Karen, if you're listening to this, I like to make sure I mention that. But I said, hey, this is not what I thought it was. And she said, hey, just keep going and give it a shot and start doing some research. And the worst case scenario, just like my wife said, is you could just go back and get a job. And
Mm,
so from that moment on, I started to do research on what it meant to run a good company and what it, because I hadn't read any business books. I've read a ton now and stumbled across some things that really were pivotal in creating our core and our culture and kind of the idea of the company that I wanted to have. And that was a big moment because we still have the same core values that we started with back then, and we still have them today.
yeah, that's powerful. It sounds like you're very mission driven. I,
Mhm.
I I really like what you say when you said it was not what you thought it was. And I feel like that's part of why people say you're a socialist when you're a teenager, and then as you get older, you become fascist. I don't know if that's the one, but I think you just become more of a, maybe for me, I feel like I'm becoming more of a capitalist where you understand that all humans are equal. What is it? All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. All people are, I want everyone to have equal opportunities, but I also believe in a meritocracy. And life is tough. I don't know what to say. And I've been kicked a ton of times. And
Yeah.
I that's almost the best thing though, even for my kids. I want my kids to have the best schools. I want them to have the best cell phones, all this sort of stuff. So anyway, that bit of a side rant there. But when you say not what you thought it was, it's really different. I think people don't fully get it. In a lot of ways, a business is almost like having a never-ending job hunt. Because all a job really is a business with one product, your time, and what you've been trained to do, and one
Yeah.
customer, which is your boss. And if you can really nail down the problem you're solving and figure out a way to solve it for 100 people, now you might have a business instead of just a job. So I think that's, in some ways, I think it's a failing of education that they try to make it so overcomplicated in some respects. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, and I don't think we're teaching, and I think you've heard this before, but I was a teacher for a long time, and I really felt I ran the TV program and taught the television production courses, but I can list 50 students right now that are very successful in that career because we taught them something that they could actually use and move forward to. And they still went to college, the majority of them did, but they went there with an idea of knowing what they were passionate about and knowing what they wanted to do. And we're not teaching, it's better now. I've spoke to a lot of classrooms that are teaching business skills and entrepreneurship, and I think it's a lot better than it used to be. We're still not teaching leadership, we're not teaching time management, we're not teaching finance as much. And really I think every person, every student should be taught all those things and then also have a course on how to run a business. Even employers today are looking for that entrepreneurial sort of
Owner
creative
mentality.
person.
It's
Yeah, that's the thing I look for. I don't look for graphic designers. Yes, we got to look at their portfolio and those kind of things. But my admin and my project managers, I just want to know if they can work.
yeah.
Can you work?
Can
Can
you
you work? Yeah.
yeah, do you show up and understand that you're here to do more than just watch the clock? Like we're actually
Yeah.
here to produce a result for people, and that's how this works. Is that people come and they go, "Hey, I have a toothache," and we go, "Oh, let's stop that pain," and we stop the pain. They go, "Oh, thanks," and they give us some money. And they don't come here and go, "I'm in pain." We go, "Oh, sit in that chair," and then we just bill them. That's we actually
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
get done, and that so many people lose track of that. It's like the bigger a company gets, the stupider it gets because it's become so compartmentalized and so many staff and everyone is focused on their silo versus at the end of the day delivering the result for the end client. I think that's it's a powerful lesson that I think is really important. What for you in terms of growing and running a business? Obviously, you've been around long enough to survive a couple cycles. What do you think for you has been one of the hardest challenges to overcome, and how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think the biggest challenge always, and I think most people will probably agree, is always being consistent with your sales and having revenue come in the door. Cash flow and sales are what, if I had to focus on one thing that's always been the bane of our existence, is that sales piece. And when you're the CEO, we've tried to hire salespeople and just some they come and go. And when you're the CEO, it's your responsibility to bring in the big sales. That's your job, especially when you're just starting out. And I believe today that your brand as a person, as a CEO, is super important to make sure that you get that out there because people buy you. They want to buy and they want to know who is at the leadership helm. And I think for me, it's always been that problem of sales. And I think what we've done, especially over the course of the last year, is really figure out and what we did. And we made a lot of mistakes. And one of them, I think, was being everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be that full service marketing company. And yes, can we do this? And I would say yes to things because there was dollars on it, and we wouldn't end up doing a very good job with it, or we would get get it done and it would be fine, but it would cause a lot of stress. And so for us, if I could go back and start all over again, and we are slowly working towards this a little bit, but I think really niching down and focusing on one singular problem and one singular service would be a really good direction. Now we've slimmed down from 10 to 15 services down to 5 or 6 core services, which has really helped. But the sales piece for me, when I started out, I didn't really even know how to do sales. It's an art. And I've taken a lot of courses, read a lot of books, some Sandler training. But
There is
for
great.
us,
I love
huh?
saying, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. The bracketing and all. I did that for a while. And man, I've learned some great lessons from Sandler. That to me, if I could focus full time only on sales, and I could train a really killer salesperson, and that I think would make a big difference because every day I'm working on something else. I'm working with a client, I'm helping an employee, I'm answering questions. And so I have to time block times that specifically say sales.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of pieces that go into that. Of course, there's marketing and all those things that go into it. But for us, I think the biggest problem we've ever had is just that consistent cash flow.
I think a lot of people struggle with that. You got to constantly deliver high quality product. I love what you said though, niching down one problem, one person, one suite of services or products in the beginning, which maybe is just a simple, normal, and a deluxe version of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have that standard service offering. I think, especially maybe being in a creative business, it can be tough to do that because now you're
Yeah.
having to be creative in a box, and you're like, hey, man, is that
Yeah, and I think we want to help solve problems. That's what I love to do. I love to solve problems. And so if we're building a customer's website and let's say we would have to do graphic design, but let's say we didn't want to do digital anymore and they're like, "Hey man, we really like working with you guys. We'd love you to run our Google Ads." So how we're solving this problem, how we're solving that issue, I think, in one, we're really working on our SOPs, which as a creative person is like nails on a chalkboard, right? I hate SOPs. I don't even care. I just want it done. Like, it doesn't matter. But my staff and my team need it. So we're working a lot on that. And then also finding solutions to things that we're not great at and outsourcing those things. And I never wanted to do that because I was always like, we do everything here. It's all done under one roof. And we tried some outsource companies working, doing digital for us and doing web and graphic design and never had much success until the last 6 months. And we found a couple teams for project management and for web dev. And it's the best thing I've ever done.
yeah,
And it's allowed us to scale and really focus on the things that we want to focus on, which is I love the idea of telling the story on a website and getting the brand message and making it look beautiful. And I don't like the building of it. And when we were doing it all ourselves, we had one designer and one web developer. And John, as great as he was, I mean, he could only do so many. And he was also responsible for all the other ones that we hosted that we built previously.
right.
And we still have a web developer on staff, but her responsibility is break fix, lighting up new sites so the development team can then build. And basically, she does that and then she goes back to her regular job. It's great. It's like genius. And it's people have been doing it forever. We just never did.
I I think that's really powerful in the sense of, I think it was a Rich Dad Poor Dad book, one of the series, which was OPM, OPR, OPC. Other people's money, other people's resources, other people's customers. And it really
Yeah.
comes down to collaboration. The whole concept was like, you talk about a sales team. Maybe somebody has a sales team, they're idle for 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. So now you could share the staff. Or somebody's got, I grew a martial arts school because there was a guy that he really just did kids classes. He didn't do anything else. And kids at his age group, like below teen, like they're not doing 7 p.m. classes type
Yeah.
thing. So we were able to build successful martial arts schools using the same facility. And we ended up building like an octagon inside of it and everything because it
That's
just
cool.
worked out really well. So it's that OPM, other people's money. You borrow money from the bank to invest. OPR, other people's resources. Someone's got a fleet of trucks, but they're only using 2 of them at a time, and the other ones are idle. Other people's customers. And it's almost like what you're saying. Like for you, you've got customers, and by being able to introduce, you vet them. The customers know, trust you. You vet them. Your team is quality control for that company as well. Or if there's any issues, you can help. And I think that's a big deal. I'm on a bit of a rant here, but I think I may have mentioned that I spent about 50 grand to have 10 people help me go through all the academic literature. What moves the needle for small and medium-sized businesses.
Right.
One thing that didn't quite fit into any category, we identified 8 critical success factors, but there's lots of interesting facts that didn't really fit in there. One of them was that one of the best places for a startup is a highly religious community. And part of the reasoning for that, they theorized, was because there was a baseline set of morality and rules. So conflict resolution was really simple
Yeah,
because everybody had the same morality.
makes
So
sense.
it was really visible if who was in the right and who was in the wrong. And in the absence of that, I don't know anyone. I've got some personal experiences where I've had clients that feel that they're very much within their moral right, and I'm like, no,
Yeah,
things have been
yeah,
delivered. I don't know if that's morally right. I'm more than happy to negotiate here, and so that makes it tough. So what you're doing in some respects is an added value because now there's another party involved. Do you know what I mean? That kind of helps create that social. Anyways, what I'm saying is just it creates a collaborative network and it's more stable and everybody maybe gets more what they want. And that's a bit of a win-win for everyone around.
yeah. And it's been great for us just because the thing that I always wanted to do is I wanted to have my people I want them not to be stressed out and not to have just a ton of workload. And I want them to be managing and high level. That's the direction that we've gone. Now we still have some day-to-day workers and things like that, but really at the size of the company that we are now, we wanted to empower our leaders to make decisions and then not have them be stuck in the weeds. Like we wanted them to be more like orchestrating things happening. And so for them, and that's the same thing for me, is we wanted them to have a team. So we have a team of web developers that they just, once the client approves the design, they put all the content into our project management software, and then they just give them all the to-dos and then they move on
Mm.
and they wake up the next morning and voila. It's been great. I think it's the only way this last 4 or 5 months we've built some really large websites, and there's no way we could have done it the
Yeah.
other way. There's just no way.
Yeah. I just think it's great because I think in an era where people want to have more automated customer service and they want to have
Yeah.
less interaction with humans, that you're really winning by digging deep and collaborating with people more. And I just think that's a really important thing to highlight because technology is great. Gmail has something like 40 software engineers that serve a billion people through the tool. But I know a lot of people that would abandon Google in a heartbeat if they had an alternative because it's
Oh
going
yeah.
to
No problem. Yeah.
all that stuff. So I just think that's an important thing to highlight that as people fear AI and all this sort of stuff, that human touch, that collaboration, I think is a critical piece. You mentioned building the story and the brand message. Can you expand on that a little bit? Like why story? Who cares about a brand message? I know I
Yeah.
sound
Yeah. I think more than ever, it's my favorite thing to talk about. It's what I love to do. If that's all we did is create brand and messaging for customers, and we do a lot of that. But I think more than ever, because a lot of the things that you just talked about, but there's so much noise out there. Everyone's trying to get the customer's attention. It happens at lightning speed and it's always coming, and there's always somebody that's better than that. And so I think a lot of times we're just throwing out ads or we're throwing out this, and it doesn't really make much sense to the customer. And what I like to tell my customers is what I want you to come up with is what we call finally. And that message of finally. And what is that perfect ad or that perfect message that your customer would see? And they would see it for what is it, 2.2 seconds, right? Whatever it is. And they would go, oh, finally, this is what I've been looking for. This is the company I've been looking for. This the service I've been looking for. This is the product I've been working for. And all of us know because we all buy stuff online all the time that we see, we're like, oh, that's perfect for me because the algorithms have presented it in such a way. But that message of finally is so important for even the largest customers that we've done work for, large $50 million manufacturing companies who haven't changed their website since the beginning. Like I had to really talk to them about this, and how I explained it to them is, look, you guys are hands down, these guys are the best. They're almost 100 years old. It's fourth generation. They basically invented the process, and then over that time, of course, there was competitors, and they are hands down the leader in the industry globally. And so they're like, we don't really care about all this. We know we got to do something, but let's just do the bare minimum. And I'm like, hey guys, listen, if we compare you and your competitors and just look at them face value, website, LinkedIn, logo, brand, they look better than you. And at the end of the day, you don't think it matters. But I can tell you right now that the average customer doesn't know the difference. They're going to look side by side and it matters.
yeah.
And so I think the message is really your brand and your messaging should be who you are. And I love this line of your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
I agree with that wholeheartedly because a lot of people try to like I love that you said that because I feel like that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. I've heard all sorts of different things. It's how people feel about your colors, and but it's none of that stuff. I'm a direct response marketer. So I feel like very much we talk about ads and that it's in the internet is a direct response marketing platform. How
Yep.
many clicks did you get? How many opt-ins did you get? It before that, people don't understand. Before that, a lot of it was Madison Avenue, and not a lot of people were tracking. That's actually why they had coupons and the Val packs with the coupons, the flyers. People were trying to figure out what's producing an ROI here, and that's very much direct response marketing. But branding, how does that fit in? And it's like the direct response marketing might kick off the relationship, but the brand is your reputation. Essentially, it's what people are saying about Brian when you're not around. Oh, I know Brian. He's a good guy. He's really good at
Yeah.
that.
And that's what I want them to say. That's my favorite thing for people to say is like when people have a problem or an issue or their marketing's not great or they're been screwed over by another company. I want people to say, hey, just call Brian. He'll solve it for you. And I always tell the customer, I'm like, hey, I don't know if we'll be a good fit, but I love solving problems. What's your problem?
Right.
And typically what they say is that my marketing's all over the place. Our messages are different on every different platform. And we've got one company working on our website. We've got another company doing our social media. And then we've got my VP of sales doing the LinkedIn.
Right.
And the messages aren't the same. And so that singular message now down the road and multiple times too, of course, you're going to have different messages for different products and services and all that stuff. But what is that? What is that singular message of why we should do business with you?
Mm,
And I think that other piece of why we should do business with you is, like you said earlier, is what pain are you solving for me? And I
mm,
think painting this picture of what would your life look like after you engage with us?
mm.
Just imagine that you knew where all your brand assets were and they were in a nice folder and you could grab them anytime you want. Imagine if you went to your LinkedIn and the header looked similar to your Facebook. Imagine if, you went to your website and you were really happy about it and not frustrated. So I think those are the kind of messages that we say, but then every business needs to do the same thing because
Right.
customers don't really care about you. They really don't.
They don't. And I think that's really bumblebees and flowers aren't trying to be best friends, but they've had a relationships that's
Yeah.
survived decades, centuries, because they're selfishly compatible.
Mhm.
A symbiotic, selfish relationship. And through that selfishness, that guarantees that each person can be trusted to do their role. The problem with altruism is that typically if people try to do something that's altruistic, they're actually secretly expecting some sort of payoff. Oh, I'm going to be told I'm a good person, or or this
Yeah.
is going to come back to me somehow. It's not a
Yeah.
genuine, it's not even trees that give off fruit. They're hoping that you'll go plant the seed somewhere and that you'll wrap it in a bunch of feces as food. So but that just being really open with that, customers, they just want what they want. And in person, people
Yeah.
will lots of lip service. But when you're not there, they want the best answer. And I love what you said. So just to spell this out for people, it sounds like when you're talking about your story and your brand, you need to typically focus on what life would look like after should we do business and helping them imagine. It's like dentists sell more. I don't know why I like dentists today. This
You
is
do. That's all you're talking about today.
I
Maybe
know.
we should do a
Yeah,
dentist
Brian's
podcast.
a dentist. I don't know why this is even like
I'm not a dentist.
yeah. But
I was at the dentist. Yeah.
but pictures of beautiful smile sells more dentistry than photos of ugly teeth type
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, it's not complicated. And I think that's a good point is that we overcomplicate marketing, right? And marketing hasn't changed. The marketing hasn't changed since the beginning of marketing, right? The way that we deliver it obviously has changed. But
Right.
the very first commercials were nothing about, if you think of some of the most famous ones that didn't have anything necessarily to do with the product, it was here, look at you. This is what you look like, and this is what you could look like if you use these products. Look how happy you are. Look how it's never changed. That's big. The big complaint with Super Bowl commercials always is we didn't know what the hell the product was. We didn't know what it was for. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's this is what your life could look like. And just imagine if you had an HVAC company that was affordable and they were polite and they came in and solved your issues whenever you need them. Whatever that message is, I think then everything else becomes easy because from that point, what your why is, what your message and your brand is, then you just need to put together some sort of semblance of a plan on how you're going to deliver it.
Yeah, I love that. And to deliver over time. I'm a writer downer. So I wrote down before and after mechanism and proof of results. That really that in
Mhm.
your marketing message, you're trying to describe Is this you now? Do you want this? Before and after. The mechanism is your USP, your unique selling proposition, the mechanism, the reason how, your magic sauce, and why you have it, not anyone else's. And then some sort of proof of results or some sort of confidence factor, maybe even a scarcity reason why act now. And then Jeff Walker, his whole product launch thing is understanding that sales can be like a one-time, 1 day, 1 hour type of event, but it's also a sideways process. So he talks about the sideways sales letter where you have to drip it out over time because people go through, it's like dating. Some people aren't ready to go right now, or you meet for coffee once and they're not ready to go for coffee again for a while. And you got to figure out, how do you communicate and stay in touch with those people? There's also recency bias as well. I think that's an important one. Why marketing and lead gen are never going to go away is that when I'm going to go to dentist, but when you need a video made, when you need a video,
there you go.
You need to create a video made. You may have met someone that's won awards, but you're not even going to think of them. You're probably just going to think of the most recent person that does it. That's a recency bias. Like when you're looking for something, you're just going to go to the most convenient person for that in a lot of ways. And that's part of why getting out there, staying in touch. People buy when they're ready to buy, not when you're ready to sell necessarily.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that's why branding for me is so important, is that it's hard to quantify the ROI on branding. I get that question a lot. But I can guarantee you though, that a couple of the clients most recently that we took their logo and redid their entire logo and brand and redid their entire website. Just that I know, because I went to a big trade show and it was one of the best trade shows they've had just because of the new brand and the logos are on there. And I know that makes a difference. And it's oh no, like what we were hoping to happen happened when they went to the trade show, is that their competitors were like, oh no, these guys are catching up in branding. They've already caught up the skill set and the engineering and all that, whatever. They've been there for above everyone. And now they're like, oh no, now they're doing that.
I think something a lot of people don't realize is that often the biggest market group in any field is often the novices, the newbies. And so even though that company's been around for 100 years, even though they're best in class, like you said, the brand really helped them because a lot of the new customers are coming in and they're judging books by their cover.
Yeah. Yeah. And anybody can look good on a website. It doesn't, that is, and you'd like to think that some of these products that they're selling are very expensive and they're going to obviously have to get quotes, but it makes a difference. I think if you've got that message in their head and have that brand that's consistently, that they know what it is, they can recognize it and they know what it stands for. I just think it makes an easier sale. I think it makes them think about you when they're typically not. That's what I tell my staff all the time is, look, our customers, past customers, current customers that we're just hosting their site for, they're not sitting there going, hey, we should call Brian and spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
They're just not. And so that's up to us to remind them, like, hey, it's been 3 months since we've built your website. I think now it's probably a good time to really start to get those videos done that we talked about.
Right.
And customers, getting a sale is very difficult. And so having that brand be as laser like focused and sharp as you can is going to be important.
Yeah, I think that's 100. Again, you got to stand out. I think the best way people put it, the pioneers get the arrows, the settlers get the land. So if you're a pioneer and no one else is selling, you might be out on a limb, right? You might not be where it's a safe spot. And a better way to think about it is that you just want to be at a really busy food court and you just want to try to be the best of the available options, but you can't be the two. You can't be the me too. You got to be your own version. I can only get this there. I'm craving spinach and garlic today, and I can only go for the spinach, the garlic. They got it as great one. Or I just want some lemonade, and I got to go to the lemon. That's the big thing there. I always try to say that you got to think of a market like the problem, like a lake in the woods. In that lake, there's a lot of different stereotypes experiencing that problem. There's birds that live all around this lake. Some birds eat fish. Some birds eat bugs and insects.
Yeah.
Some birds eat berries. Some birds eat other birds, but it's a network. And you talked about the Super Bowl. There's people that are going to steal the stream online for free. There's people that are going to pay-per-view to watch it at home. There's people that are going to pitch in to go to the pub and they all split the cost of pay-per-view and have some drinks with buddies. There's people that are going to do the road trip and they're going to sit in the nosebleed section. There's people that are going to be wanting to have their feet on the grass. There's people that are going to be watching it on TV in a big box in the stadium. I don't really get that, but they're there. And it's the same problem. I need something to do this weekend. And it's one problem and it's one solution, but there's a whole bunch of different price points. You help people find work. There's homeless people that need jobs, and there's high-powered CEOs that need jobs. Two different people, two different price points, two different experiences that are expected. And I think that's a really important, making sure that you show up. If my car's broken and I need my car to be fixed, and I go to the mechanic and he comes out in this really nice fancy suit and he's wearing fancy jewelry, I'm going to go somewhere else. I want a grease monkey. I
Yeah.
want a guy that looks like he lives under
Yeah, that's brand. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want him looking like he's got no dirt under his nails. He's got a nice
Yeah, I don't want that guy working.
yeah. He's gonna charge me an arm and a leg. He's in this to make some money, not to do good work. I'm gonna take my car in to get an oil change. I'm gonna leave, and my brakes are gonna need to be fixed. My engine's gonna be rattling. I'm gonna have to come back for all these problems I didn't have before I showed up. Yeah, I think that's an important thing. So in your over 10 years of experience, what do you think are some of the most important habits that you've yourself had and that you've seen in your more successful clients?
Yeah, I love that because that's something that really for me personally over the last 6, 7 months, I've really had to get new habits. And so I'm writing that book, The Lonely CEO. And part of that, all of it is there's a lot of marketing in there, obviously, and branding and those kind of things too. But a lot of it is about how you can operate as a CEO and how you can operate as a business owner. Because I believe this, it's one of the hardest things that you'll ever do. And my wife's a business owner. And so we have two business owners in the house, and it's this constant back and forth conversation. Sometimes I'm doing pretty good and so I can help support her. Okay, things are going to be okay. And it just seems to work out pretty well, thank goodness that not both of us are not in bad spots at the same time, because that would be terrible. But I think for me, and I've done this with a lot of my coaching clients too, is that simple belief that you are the one.
Mm,
You are the one to do this. You have everything that you need. And my favorite story is this young girl named Crimson, and her dad, I think she was 28, 29. She didn't want to do what she was doing. And so she came back home, very successful, but she just got burnt out. And her dad's a very successful business owner. And he says, hey, we should start a business together, something different, something you like. And then you and I will partner up. You can run it. I'll help finance it, and we'll go from there. And they started a golf simulator company, like a retail place where you can go in and do. And it's awesome. But she, a couple months into coaching and we were helping her with the website, she's, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not a business owner. I don't know anything about this. And I'm like, Cribs, I'm like, you've got everything you need to do this.
mm,
You've got everything you need. You're smart, you're hardworking. It's right now you're in a really good spot because you're starting this from scratch. And so let's take some time and really put things in place before we get started. And so for me, what I've had to do to make sure that I stay on top of my game was that simple belief, and that imposter syndrome creeps up a lot for business owners, and it creeps up a lot for me because we just assume that everyone else around us in business is doing really well. And it's not hard and they're just killing it. And in reality, very few people do what we do.
right.
And that's what I want your listeners to understand, is that very few people are successful at running their own business. Their percentages are terrible.
Mm,
And I think we just assume because we're in it that everybody can do it.
right. Right.
And so that belief system for me is that constant. And I'm not saying you have to be happy every day or anything like that. I just think it's that belief that you are the one to do it, and you are making the decisions with the best information that you have at the time, and continue to move forward. And so morning routine is super important to me. Finding time to read and study, blocking and time blocking for me is something that I teach a lot of my clients, which sounds simple, but that's always been a game changer for me as well too.
And it's not just time management, it's also energy management. I think that's something that doesn't get
Yeah.
talked about a lot. Like you can get a planner and you can manage your day in 15-minute blocks, be like, I'm gonna have the most productive day. But then you eat
Yeah.
a pound of meat for breakfast, and then just your all your blood and energies in your gut trying to digest it. And so you're showing up for your 15-minute sessions that you've scheduled in. I'm gonna do 15 minutes on this and 30 minutes on
Yeah.
that,
That doesn't
but
work.
you're not there. So that's something that a lot of people got to get in there as well. I think that's a
And I
really
think that morning routine for me, a little bit of meditation, some exercise, some reflections, and just some mornings I don't want to do it. Like I don't want to get on the bike. I don't want to go up to the weight bench. I don't want to meditate. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to get up at 5 o'clock. But I do it. And I've done it consistently because some days it goes really well, and some days I kill it and I feel really good about my routine and my exercise. And some days I don't. But I can tell you, if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be able to sit here at 6:30 at night, my time, after a long day at work and have a intelligent conversation. There's no way. There's just no way.
Right,
And
right.
so eating healthy and exercising and those kind of things and sleep, like if you're really going to be that warrior and run a business, that's got to be a priority because you're not going to make it.
Yeah, yeah. People don't realize that there's actually a legal requirement for truck drivers to get a certain amount of sleep because uh,
Mhm.
driving while sleep deprived is equivalent to being to drunk driving.
Oh,
And
I'm
so
sure. Yeah.
this hustle culture, what a lot of people don't realize is that if you're grinding it out and you're sleeping 4 hours a night, you are stacking drunken decision making on top of drunken decisions on top of what if I just drank 7 liters of vodka every day and ran my business? Would I make the smartest decisions all the time? Now, but
Well, it's
people
been
have
done. Yeah.
to do the 4 hour, the four,
Yeah.
4 hour sleep day and just stack those days on top of each other. And it's what you don't realize is that judgment and decision making is one of the most powerful tools you have at your disposal, right? It's the whole concept of compound interest. And if you stack good decisions on top of good decisions,
Yep.
that leads you where you want. Whereas the opposite, like you mentioned, if you're not showing up at your best to perform, like you're in a nosedive tailspin and don't even realize it.
I think the thing to think about too, and one of my coaches who I have brought this up to me, and I thought it was just fascinating. And I saw it happen. And when he mentioned it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have done that. And if you're down, and this is a hard thing to hear for CEOs and business owners, but if you're down, say you're feeling off 10% in how you're acting or how you're talking or however, your team feels it by 50%, whatever the numbers are. And so if you're going to lead a company and you're going to have team that work for your clients, whatever, you have to be on your game. It's like Olympic sport, man. And because that one thing, or if you, I've had it in the past where I just, we have Monday conversations with our entire team. And I was getting to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't want to be that inspirational anymore. No one's really listening to it. I don't know if it makes a difference. And a couple weeks later, one of my staff was like, hey, man, we need that inspirational guy back because it makes a difference. And the minute you aren't, people are like, what's going on? Why isn't he excited?
I think that's really important. I mentioned those 8 critical success factors we found. And I've interviewed 500 people. We did all that research. The 8 critical success factors were self-efficacy, market intelligence, strategic planning, marketing strategy, sales strategy and skills, money management, business operations, and business intelligence. Those are the big 8 umbrella categories. And we broke down the subcomponents too. And so self-efficacy is your ability to be effective via yourself and others. And it's Elon Musk has been touted as saying, if you work a 90-hour week and your competitors work 45-hour week, you'll just outwork them. That's half true, sure, as long as you're showing up well. But again, if they're showing up at 50% efficacy and you're showing up at 100% efficacy, like there's a lot of built-in assumptions on that per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole, I've been sitting here working on this book report and I haven't got anything done. And now I got 1 hour left and I managed to get everything done in the 1 hour.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
work
And you
expands.
can, yeah, yeah. And with time blocking, you can do that. You can really, if you have focused work, you don't need, we always feel like if it's 8 hours or 10 hours, we got to put all this in. But if you really have focused work that you're working on one or two things in a time block, you can get it all done. And you really can. And that's for me, it used to be where I'd have an entire day and I wouldn't really have anything scheduled. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get all this stuff done. And then in reality, the day would be over and you'd be like, what did I do?
That's it, because I didn't give myself any deadlines. Yeah,
Uh-oh.
that's
Yeah.
that self-efficacy thing. And I think that comes back
Yeah.
to where people talk about wanting to build a superstar team. It's that the superstars are people that show up their best every day. I think that's a really important kind of
Well, and yeah, I think as leaders too, what I had to realize, and I knew this as a teacher, but it's your job to help them become that person. You may have to teach them time management. You may have to teach them inspiration and leadership
right.
and give them books and yeah, because they may not know it.
If they had all this stuff, they wouldn't be working for you.
But yeah, and I just assume, I think my wife does too, and you probably do too. We're X generation, and so we just work. We've always just worked, and it's never been a question. Every job that we've had, her and myself, every job we've been the best employee that we ever could be, just because we just thought that's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're finding now that we have to teach that. Now I have some superstars. I haven't had to teach everyone that. I've got some people that we've had that they just walked in and that's what they do.
Hmm.
But I still find that they do want leadership and they do want direction and they do want inspiration. And so sometimes you also have to think about your best high performers
Mhm.
they still need something too.
Yeah, 100%. So where do you think the future of things are? What are you keeping your eyes on for the next 5, 10 years? We've had a lot happen geopolitically, where the pandemic is behind us. Hopefully people are going to be going to jail soon. We've got AI is disruptive. Where do you see things in 5, 10 years? What trends are you paying attention to? And what would you advise people to keep their finger on the pulse of?
Yeah, I think AI is going to be a piece in it. If you're not comfortable with using AI yet, then just simple chat GPT, check it out, get the paid version. That's something that I think that has to be a piece of has to be a tool in your toolbox. Now, I'm not saying use it for everything, but it's got to be a tool in your toolbox.
Right.
I still think that creator economy is going to be huge in the next 5, 10 years. I just think that's going to continue to grow and grow. I think if you have something that you can create for someone that needs it, I think you should really consider doing that for a living. I think right now, the economy, the way that it is, and we're starting to see, even with the pandemic gone, people are still not coming back to work. They're still not coming to the office. And so that true effect of what that's going to do, we won't know. We're already feeling a little bit. We're 4 years removed or whatever, this world where we can work from anywhere, which has always been there, but we never really embraced it until we had to.
Try and make $1 million and then trying to work remotely put a nail in the coffin because I wasn't working because I wasn't at the office. And that
So I
was
think that's some of the trends that we're looking for. There's always going to be some new social media. There's always going to be some new way. I always like to go back to really that question of who are you, what is your brand, and what problem are you solving, and then however you get it out to the audience, it doesn't really matter. But I think there's other sectors that are going to be really interesting. Manufacturing still is going to be a big one. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the trades still today. I think for young people, I love that niche. That's the niche that we do really well in. And I think we're really going to have to think about how we work and how we work in this remote world and create teams. That's one of the things that is, as I think for a lot of people has been a transition, is that culture and this camaraderie that you have with people when they're all over the world working is something that has been difficult for a lot of people to do. And so I think that's something that we're always going to have to think about is what's that look like if we can't if we're not getting together on a daily basis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that 100%. I think it's really well said. If people have questions, if people want to follow up, if they want to reach out, if they want to get your insights on their brand and their brand story, what are some of the best ways for them to get in touch?
Yeah, super easy. Just Google search us, but look at michigancreative.com, and then my domain is bryantown.io. If you search Bryantown Michigan Creative, you'll find us. Love to talk to you. Love solving problems.
So take a look for Bryan Town, BRIANTOWN.io. You can also look up Michigan Creative, MICHIGAN Creative, CREATIVE.com. Bryan, I've got a page of notes here. This has been a great call. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
No, I don't think so. I think you've done a great job. I think looking forward to the book launch in September if it gets done, working on it weekly. So I'll let you know when that comes out and send you copies, and I'll sign it so you can impress your friends.
Perfect. I love it. Looking forward. Thanks, man. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
You too. Thank you so much, Daryl. I love being on.